wanted to ask you about the role of management in the success of a car wash. Hey, is it everything? Is it nothing? Where would you place that?
Well, again, in two segments of the industry, the full service car wash, the manager who's in charge is by far the most important person on the property. In this case, more important than the customer, because without the proper manager, the customers aren't going to return. The manager is key. Even if the owner is even if he's hands-on and he's on the site, the owner, in the big majority of the cases, are not going to do the job of the manager. Because he's the owner, he thinks, why should I do it? Unless it's just an unusual person who really wants to get out there, with the troops. And so the manager is critical. I sold a car wash in Sacramento, and I sold to somebody, and then he sold to somebody else, and the somebody else, new venture for them, highly successful in another industry they was in, and they bought this car wash, and I met them about 2 or 3 months after I came to Sacramento, and the secretary there said, you have to come over and meet the new owners. And so I did. Very, very, very nice man. And I knew that he and the manager, who was my manager, who was the manager of the people I sold to, he's been there 7 or 8 years, and I knew that he was having trouble with the manager, and the manager was having trouble with him, because the manager called me and said, I just can't keep working for this guy, and he told me what was the problem. Of course, there's two sides to the story, and so I listened to this new owner, talked for a couple hours, and I looked at my watch, I said, well, I have to go because I've got an appointment with another car wash. And he says, and I'll never forget this, and he says, if there's one thing that you could leave me with that you think would help me, and he says, could you tell me what it is? I said, yeah. And he didn't ask me a question for 2 hours. He just told me what he was going to do and what he was doing, and I just nodded. He didn't retain me. I was just there as a guest. And so he said, if there's one thing, I said, sure. I said, I could tell you. I said, you see that man standing out the window? And he looked. It was the manager. He didn't know that I knew that he and the manager was having difficulties. I said, that man standing out there is the most important person there is on this property. I said, believe me, I know. He worked for me. I said, I know the difference. I said, if for whatever reason, if he quits, or if he dies, or if you terminate him, I said, you got an exposure of this business. I said, because that man is the most important man that there is in full service. Well, he didn't listen to me too long. I think he terminated the manager a couple weeks later. And it's been revolving chairs. One manager after another, one manager after another. And even though the manager that he terminated had problems, his personality, when he got upset, his personality wasn't exactly what it was, and you had to get him back in line. But he had so many good points, and he knew exactly how to run this very difficult full service. And it was very difficult because we diversified, we did this, we did that. And the manager in a full service is critical. And of course, Mr. Car Wash would certainly agree, because their training program has to be outstanding. They have managers and supervisors and general managers, and they couldn't do it without people, But when you get into express exterior, that's not the story. You need a manager, but he doesn't have to have the expertise, and he doesn't have to know really how to handle labor that well, because he's only going to have 1 or 2 employees. The manager usually is he's a working manager, and he's the third person on the property, or he or she. And so even though they have to be a people person, because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with 1 or 2 employees, and so you have to be a people person, you have to be personable, but you don't need that skill that a full service manager needs. And you don't have a labor percentage problem, because if you have 1 or 2 employees, forget about the percentage, that's not a problem.